Hello, this is Ima Dumas with generic mainstream media news for January 10th, 2026. Our top story: EV sales have fallen. That's right, the Q4 2025 numbers are in, and EV sales have dropped drastically, proving nobody wants an EV. Whoa, what is that? Stop. No, you can't do it. Stop. Yes, this absolutely will be the kind of article you can expect to see all over the place next year. And yes, EV sales will absolutely go down. And yes, this article is absolutely baloney. See, not only will EV sales absolutely go down, but it's actually even kind of a good thing. Want to know why? Well, let's talk about that right now. Hi, this is Rich, and welcome to Wings, Wheels, and Wires. So, the $7,500 EV tax credit went away on September 30th. Because of this, October EV sales have already gone down, and no doubt the Q4 2025 sales numbers, when they come out, will show a big drop in sales. Even worse, the Q1 of 2026, while better than the Q4 of 2025, will still be lower than they were before the tax credit went away. So, does this mean no one wants an EV now? Well, yes and no. In order to be able to understand this, we're going to need to break the market down by motivation. We'll start the very first group being the folks who have no intention of buying an EV. They will be completely unaffected by this. By the way, they'll also easily be identified down in the comment section below by saying something to the effect of EV suck. The next group are the folks who are just kind of considering an EV purchase. They like the idea, but they haven't really committed themselves to it. Really, their motivation is to keep the most money in their pocket as possible, and who can blame them? You see, they've heard the EVs have a lower cost for maintenance and a lower cost for fueling, and they like this idea. They are also aware, though, that EVs cost more than their gas counterparts. And without the EV tax credit, these EVs might be too expensive for them and they'll be priced out of the market and they'll just go with a gas car or hybrid. Now, this group will be divided into two camps. The first one being folks who decided not to buy an EV before the credit went away. And now they will not be buying an EV in the foreseeable future. Now, this small group does actually create the legitimate drop in EV sales that we're going to see over Q4 2025. There is some good news here, though, because this is also the group that is most likely going to end up making a TikTok video some number of months in the future talking about how much they regret EV ownership and they will never buy another EV again. This group of people really does not understand EV ownership. It's the cool trending thing, perhaps, and it also does save them money, so they're sold. The thing is, these folks would quickly become disillusioned when they realize the EVs do not run on unicorn farts, and they do actually require some lifestyle changes. So their loss is not actually a terrible thing. I think the reality of it is they would be better served by buying a plug-in hybrid and then getting used to the concept of plugging a vehicle in, and then the next vehicle after that might be right for them to have an EV. And at that point, they would actually have a positive experience, but not now. The second camp in this group is perhaps a little more educated on EV ownership and maybe a little more dedicated to purchasing an EV. And I'm going to go ahead and lump them in with the third, much bigger group of people who are dedicated to EV ownership. These are folks who were absolutely going to buy an EV in the next few months. The thing is, all these people moved their purchase up to September in order to take advantage of the tax credit before it goes away. This is the group that's really going to drive that drop in Q4 because of this choice. Now, this makes perfect sense for them to do this, though, because why would you spend $7,500 more for a vehicle next month than you could pay for it today?
If you are enjoying this video, please hit that like button down below. While you're down there, hitting the subscribe button would greatly support the channel. And, of course, don't forget to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. And stand by to the end of the video to hear my new subscriber shoutouts.
Now let's play out what that would look like. Say any given area sells 100 EVs per month for a total of 300 per quarter. So we talk about October, probably 90% of people who would have purchased their vehicle in October will go ahead and move that up to September. Likewise, when we hit November, probably 70% of these people will also push their sales forward. Likewise, when we get to December, it may drop down to 40% of these people decide to go ahead and push their purchase forward to September. So now when the Q4 numbers come in, we will have lost 200 of the 300 potential sales in that quarter. Of course, on the flip side, your Q3 numbers will rise by that same 200. Now, with the theory part of this out of the way, let's go with the data that we actually have right now, which is the Q2 and Q3 sales numbers. Q2 saw sales of 310,839 units. Now, in a world where there was no end to the EV tax credit, theoretically, that would represent Q3 and Q4. But with the ending of the EV tax credit, the Q3 numbers jumped up to 438,487, which, by the way, is a record for EV units sold. Now, this is a massive difference. How big a difference? 127,648 units difference. So if we take that away from our theoretic 310,839 units sold that we might have sold in Q4, we end up with only 183,191 units is what we theoretically could expect to sell in Q4. So as you can see, this is a massive drop. And that's without accounting with any changes in actual demand. It's just when that demand gets filled. For example, the few people that end up never buying an EV because it goes away isn't even factored in here. Now, at this point, an EV cynic might say, sounds like an excuse to me. Those numbers are just going to stay low because nobody likes EVs. And in truth, what I'm talking about really does only affect the next quarter or two. It has nothing to do with what EV sales will be beyond that point. And both whether you're in favor or opposed to EVs, no one can say for sure what that will look like because none of us have a crystal ball. But what we do have is historical evidence. Because you see, Germany went through this exact same sort of thing. And while what happens in one country is not necessarily what's going to happen in another country, it is a much better basis for what we can expect than hope, emotions, or biases, right? You see, they went through this exact same situation back in December of 2023. So we have data from then to see how the market was impacted. Now that we have 2 years of history, we can kind of see what we can expect in our future. By the way, let's start with the intro to this video, because right here, Bloomberg has exactly the sort of headline that you can expect to see at the beginning of next year for us. So proving that you can totally expect the mainstream media to jump all over this as the catastrophe for EV sales. So if we check out this graph right here, you can see that there was definitely a drop off in sales when the credit went away in December 2023. And you can also see that generally there is a trend of increasing sales throughout 2024. But they never really at that point got up to where they were before the credit went away. Now, the graph ends in January 2025, and I couldn't find a good graph for the progress through 2025, but it is safe to assume that it followed a pretty similar trend upward. What I did find is this sales graph for October 2025, where EV sales had climbed up to 21% of overall sales, which is only 1% lower than it was in the last month of the EV credit, and a little less than 5% lower than the gas car sales for October. And this number is almost guaranteed to increase. Let's take BMW, for example, made in Germany. They've already reported the pre-orders for their new electric version, the X3, which will be known as the iX3, have already exceeded the orders for the gas-powered version. And they've actually reported they are legitimately concerned that they will not be able to meet the demand for this vehicle. Now, just for some context, when is the last time you've heard BMW say that they won't be able to meet demand for a vehicle? I know for me, I don't remember them ever saying this. Now, with that point of reference in mind, let's come back here to the United States. There is no reason that I can think of or we should expect our rebound to be any slower. If you can think of a legitimate reason, go ahead and throw it down in the comment section below. There is, however, reasons to expect that our rebound will be faster and stronger than Germany had. Let's start with charging. You see, prior to the end of the tax credit, we didn't have much supercharger access, but vehicles being built today will have the NACS or supercharger connection built into them, and they will have access to the supercharger network. Now, someone a little bit informed on this might go ahead and throw in the comments, well, Europe has already had that. And you are absolutely right. But here's the trick. They had that both before and after the end of the tax credit. So that was not a factor in sales. There weren't people who suddenly gained access after this. So it wasn't a factor in this at all. Whereas here in the United States, we did not previously have access to the supercharger network. And lack of chargers is one of the barriers to EV adoption. So just as we are also getting rid of the tax credit and sales will fall, access to charging networks will greatly increase, which should be upward pressure on sales. Another factor that will greatly help the rebound is that EVs have improved greatly since 2023. Let's look at BMW again as an example. From 2023 to present, their vehicles have been competent but not impressive, whereas Neue Classic coming out will be legitimately impressive and much more appealing to buyers. Also, they are not alone. You also have the Mercedes 2627 vehicles coming out, which, while not as cool as the BMWs that will be coming out, are still a notable improvement over the current ones. And that's not without even including that companies like Lucid and Rivian are coming out with lower cost versions of their vehicles, making them more available. And all of this is without even taking into account the re-release of the Chevy Bolt. Now, I understand that this vehicle is not particularly impressive in any given way, but with the starting price below $30,000, this is very accessible to people who might not otherwise have been able to afford a new EV, especially since even though the federal tax credit is gone, there are still local credits. Like, for example, if they were available right now and I were to buy one right now, I would still have the $7,500 card program available to me because I've applied for it and I received it. And I would have the $4,000 SDG&E credit, which would bring the total cost of this vehicle below $20,000. All right, so if you are still here at this point, I thank you for watching this long. I know this video is a bit of a long one. So don't forget to stick around for the subscriber shout out. And hey, check out this video.
And now it's time for the subscriber shoutouts. If you'd like your own shoutout, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel and either make sure your name is visible or put in the comments down below that you subscribed.
N.A. Huasa 99. Joey Uy. Thanks for subscribing.